Hello everyone, and welcome to another installment of the SSCAIT report. Today I'll be your host, Chobo Swaggins aka Jealous from Team Liquid. I'm recording this on Christmas evening, so first and foremost I'd like to wish everyone a happy holiday weekend. Today I'd like to start with an announcement as well. The SSCAIT submission deadline has come and gone, and we have dozens of submissions from our community. Games will be played soon, and then the tournament proper will be broadcast most likely throughout January and beyond here on the SSCAIT YouTube channel. For those of you who may not be familiar, the format of the tournament is a round robin into a double elimination bracket. Here you can see last year's bracket where Stardust overcame Monster in the finals to take first place. You can check out our cast of last year's games either through our YouTube page or you can find the playlist link here on the SSCAIT website. Games are likely to be cast from each round over the course of multiple weeks, so I hope you're as excited as we are to see them. We do have a couple of replays to show you this week, however, so let's dive right in. For our first game, we're going to have Monster spawning on the bottom left of Circuit Breakers as the yellow Zerg, going up against Adias as the white Terran in the top left. Adias, of course, being quote-unquote not Saida, but in practice they are functionally the same. One of the most probably most well-known AIs, simply due to the fact that it was developed by Samsung and with the assistance of Korean pro gamers such as Best. As a result, it has a very strong TVP. But in this case, it's going to be playing TVZ, and Monster is, again, a very high-performing AI in our scene right now, placing second in an SSCAIT tournament last year, despite having certain bugs that were caused by the map names. Scouting diagonally to see the incoming path of any scouting workers is itself going to scout vertically before expanding, or a spawning pool is going to find Adias on its first try here. Adias in the meantime though placing the barracks very far behind, very passive opening. From what I recall, some developers have told me that this is because there are certain openings that would abuse the placement of the barracks being to the front. For example, human players will generally place them here, maybe over here. And what you can do is, because of the fact that the enemy units arrive fast enough, they can prevent the Marines from really popping out and doing anything. But Monster in this case is going to go for an expansion. Let me bring up that production tab for you guys. Looks like the hatchery was started first. That is to be expected, and I don't know why this isn't moving. Now we're finally moving. There we go. Yes, so the hatchery is coming up first, and it's actually going to be 3 hatch. The third hatchery in the main base right here. The drone was being chased away by the Marine as well in the main base of Adias. Adias going for a factory behind this, which is not a very standard choice. Only one SCV on gas kind of implies the fact that it's going to be a vulture opening, most likely. The Overlord now making its way from the center of the map to go scout and confirm the presence of this factory. The SCV is going to see the Overlord. The Marine is going to come and check. Monster is going to actually sacrifice that Overlord in order to get a confirmation of the build order. And also, it has checked to see how many SCVs were on gas, so it knows that it can't be a double starport opening after this. In fact, Monster is actually denied the SCV that was building the command center, so Monster is very well aware of what Adias is making here. Made a sunken colony that is going to prevent this vulture from really being able to do any damage at all. You need a couple of vultures to be able to run by through here, but the Zerglings are already positioned on the ramp here to prevent that kind of run by, and with a second sunken within range of the ramp as well, it's very unlikely that any damage will be done by these vultures, regardless of whether they run into the back or the front of this base. Behind this, we're seeing, it looks like another factory, and most likely we're going to see a Goliath play coming in here. Meanwhile, the layer is already up for Monster, putting the drones back on gas, going to be moving into Spire Tech, it seems. Yes, indeed. So I'm sure that you guys are aware that Mutalisks are a very good unit. Humans use them to stack them in a group, and then you can basically one-shot a lot of units in Brood War using that stacked Mutalisk trick. One of the things that AI have as an advantage over humans is that, first of all, they control every unit individually, so they can have that stack be way more than the 11 Mutalisks that humans are normally limited to, and the commands are sent almost instantaneously to each one, so therefore there's no slight delay between group 1 and group 2. People, even pro gamers on the level of Jaedong and so on and so forth, they alright, Jaedong, Soma, Effort, they have used two groups of stacked Mutalisks in order to harass their Terran opponents. but there's always a slight delay between the input commands from the two of them, whereas for AI there is not going to be such a case. The Mulisks do pop out. Let's look at that army count right now. We have 7 Mulisks popping out first, so maybe not the cleanest opening from a monster. You do want to have those 9 Mulisks come out at basically the same time, generally speaking, but now we are up to 10 Mutalisks, and now we're getting to that point where SCVs are going to be one-shot, turrets are going to be two-shotted. It's actually, with 11 Mutalisks, you don't two-shot a turret, you do 2 shots, and it's left with like 1 to 3 HP or something like that, and that means that it burns down before it can be repaired, so it's effectively a 2-shot, but instead we're going to be picking off SCVs here. Some Mutalisks are going down, I believe 3-4 Mutalisks have gone down already, no range yet on the Goliaths. The Goliaths are definitely a strong opening to handle this Mutalisk pressure, but the Mutalisks have greater mobility, ramps of course making it difficult to move up and down, and the lack of anti-air static defense here by the factories is going to hurt quite a bit for Diaz here. The starport is up now though, and so is the science facility. It's almost done. The science facility is going to allow for Irradiate to be out on the map. It's less effective against AI Mutalisk groups because the AI is so good at splitting away those irradiated Mutalisks, but at the same time, it should be noted that Monster is expanding as well. Adias is aware of this. The 3rd gas has been taken by Monster, and no signs of going to Hive Tech yet, but we do have the Evolution Chamber. Looks like we have Burrow Research, which is an interesting research that Monster perhaps popularized. It costs a scan basically to take out one of these bases, or you have to pre-build a turret in order to be able to place a command center on top of that Zergling. But it looks like Adias is actually going to be more intent on slow pushing out to take this mineral only. This map is a little bit less favored towards this kind of style of Terran because of the fact that there is no 3rd gas here. In the meantime, behind this, Monster is taking that 4th base at the bottom right at the main base. Something again that you would normally, for humans, you would expect to see the natural taken first in certain matchups, but in this case it definitely makes sense to take this base. Mech is going to struggle to push up this ramp if there's units there in this matchup. Yeah, and of course, because there's no bio, so there's no need for lurkers to be holding that ramp. Still no Hive Tech yet, actually, and I'm kind of curious as to why that is. One of the standard old responses to this mech heavy play was to go Hydra Mutalisk with a lot of upgrades and stay on layer play, but more recently we've seen stuff that focuses more heavily on Hive play, you know, using Zerglings and Ultralisks, using drops in order to keep the army moving back and forth. But it looks like a heavy Zergling count. Oh, and of course Defilers with their Dark Swarm play are also a very strong choice against mech as well, because all of mech is ranged. However, it should be noted that under Dark Swarm, splash damage from siege tanks does still penetrate. So this base is up, the sunken colonies are up, and so is the spore colony. Is going to prevent any vultures from harassing here. There's no intention of holding the ramp yet, which could be a problem in the future, but the Mulisks have come into the main base now. Let's check that Mulisk count. We're up to 30 Mulisks indeed. That will eat through static defense, and I think that Adias may be aware of that, has placed so many turrets in this 3rd base here. Is going to be barely able to hold on for now, and more Mulisks are being produced, it seems. Let's see, look at that total army count. Yeah, 34 Mulisks. Hive is already up. We have the Queen's Nest. We have the Nidus Canals, and this is going to be the major feature that we were invited to see in this replay when it was suggested to us. It is the presence and prevalence of Nidus Canal usage, which again, mobility being the strong point of Zerg in this matchup. Mutalisks, as you can see, running in and absolutely decimating the economy of the Terran player. If we look at the total amount of units, can we see the SCVs and drones? Oh yes, we can, of course. Workers. Only 28 workers left now for Adias, 63 for Monster, who is now taking the top right at main as well. Just a complete economic dominance and also mobility, allowing for it to poke in and do that economic damage to Adias. Adias is kind of slow to be rebuilding workers, up to only 33, which is half the economy of Monster. But the army is, of course, formidable for Adias. Even though the supply is lower, each unit itself is more effective. Goliaths and Sea Shanks would handle an army of Zerglings quite well, even with the presence of these Mutalisks. But the Mutalisks keep poking in, they keep trying to do some more damage to the economy, keep that SCV count low. I said keep like a million times there. Anyway, so we have the Nidus usage now. They're using it to, it looks like it was transferring drones, or maybe it was a Zergling in this case. Queens are out now as well. Queens are, of course, a potential answer to mech as well. Queens using Spawn Broodling can take out siege tanks from a distance, and then the ground army can dominate the Goliaths. So far the focus still seems to be on Mutalisk production and taking out SCVs. There are 6 queens out. 6 queens, just a little bit less than the number needed to take out all of these tanks. Some Hydralisks now coming into play as well. 23 Hydras. So yeah, broodlinging the siege tanks and coming in with the Hydras might be the play here. The queens, I don't see them approach up there. They are thinking about it. Looks like the queen is trying to position itself in a way where it can spawn the broodling on the siege tank, maybe. It definitely does have the energy, and so do all of these. I'm interested to see where it goes, or maybe it's going to infest the command center. That would be a cute play as well. I believe that... Oh, there we go. There's the broodlings right there. 3 siege tanks down for free, and now the Zerg is going to try to come in, but fresh wave of siege tanks has managed to stave off the attack for now, but definitely Adias is in dire straits here. Down 3 bases to 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Dark Swarm now out on the field. As you can see, this meat grinder at the ramp, even with Dark Swarm, a lot of these units are falling to siege tanks, but because of the fact that the siege tank count has been lowered, the remaining siege tanks weren't able to do enough damage, and now this is a tough position to be in if you're a Terran player in the clutches of Monster's Dark Swarm play. The Zerglings are going to be able to reign supreme under it. Goliaths don't do any damage underneath, and with such a limited number of siege tanks, there's simply not enough splash damage to take down the Zerg forces. But that being said, the ground army has been thinned out quite significantly. Worker count is still stuck at 30 for Adias, but this base has been taken down in exchange for that. 3 defilers now, 4 defilers, pushing 5 defilers, pushing confidently with Dark Swarms across the map. Maybe a little bit of a misplay there on this Defiler. Doesn't have enough Zerglings to consume in order to continue the Dark Swarm push. But you have to feel that by now this is over. And it just goes to show you the progress that has been made in this community over the past couple of years. SSCAIT, when it came out, was undoubtedly one of the strongest AIs that are in the scene, and it is still quite competent, but it doesn't hold a candle to AI on the caliber of Monster and Stardust at this time. Monster made it look so easy to dismantle this opening, and that's one of the reasons why mech is perhaps less, or mech, straight up mech openings are less favored even in the human meta. It's just that they take so long to get started. The Zerg manages to out-expand and out-macro you without much difficulty, and getting to that critical mass of siege tanks and Goliaths is also quite predictable. By that point, the enemy can counteract the strategy by going for stuff like those queens, or the defilers going for heavy Mutalisk count to force a lot of Goliaths, and then switching into ground. It was a very masterful display by Monster here, who is going to clean up the last base of Adias in just a moment here. Still a barracks floating around. There's still a couple of buildings here and there, but I think it's safe to say that this game is donezo. And yeah, we're going to be moving on to the next game. Next game is also going to be featuring Monster, and this time though it's going to be in a ZVZ. And let me take a look at the comment here. Yeah, the comments in this suggestion by Bikekeeper is a very short game, but it's nice to see how good they are. So I'm definitely looking forward to seeing this. ZVZ, it's considered to be one of the more coin flippy matchups in the game. Scouting direction is very important. Basically, who gets information about who first and who can adjust their build accordingly can often factor greatly in human play and possibly an AI play as well, but in this case with cross position spawns, both players scouting in the counterclockwise direction, this is going to be equivalent scouting opportunity cost, no, scouting opportunity, scouting timing, equal, the playing field is equal, let's put it that way. And part of the reason why you would see both players scouting in this direction on this map is because you want to scout towards the nearest natural. Because that will give you earlier information that if this Zerg player did indeed spawn here, you will see their hatchery here first if they opt to go for the hatchery opening. So that could give you a little bit of a heads up as to what is being done. You want to get as much of an advantage as you can in terms of scouting intel, but unfortunately in this case neither player is going to find their opponent there. It's going to come down to what builds the two players go for in this case. We're seeing a spawning pool here at 9 supply for Corona. Meanwhile, Monster, it seems, is not going to go for that route. Actually, no, it is. It actually went for Overpool, so therefore the spawning pool still gets placed at 9. But the Overlord coming in earlier will allow for greater drone production earlier on. The Overlord now, of course, coming in for Krona as well now that it has maxed out its supply. Monster down on workers, and that's because it's added a gas actually. That's a pretty fast gas. It could indicate a aggressive Zergling play with speed, or it could indicate potentially a fast layer build with one hatchery. One hatch Mutalisks is a viable build. It creates a kind of a interesting dynamic in this matchup where one player has Mutalisks and almost no ground defenses, and the other player has usually a stronger economy and a lot of Zerglings, but no air units or anti-air units even. So it's going to be interesting to see how this plays out. I'm going to keep it at 1 speed because I was told that this is a short game. Looks like there's going to be a drone scout from Krona in the meantime, which is going to further put it behind economically at least. But it is adding that second hatchery, so in short time there will be a greater amount of production for it. However, it will be behind in tech. 6 Zerglings coming out for both players, a little bit delayed for Monster, but it's safe in doing so. And there is that layer, that one hatch layer play that is going to open into Mutalisks most likely. I think that the key here is going to be seeing how the Zerglings move through the map, see what kind of engagements they take and don't take. A couple of Zerglings being pulled out in order to scout the other bases of the map from Monster. I like this move, keeping some of the Zerglings back for defense. Is going to have 6 Zerglings in time for the 6 Zerglings to arrive from here, and it actually scouted it's not going to see that the Zerglings are coming in, but the timing is correct. This is going to should be enough to hold these Zerglings back. Already setting up an almost semi-concave, and the pressure, the defensive position is stronger. Krona, recognizing this, is going to fall back, and look at this beautiful concave from Monster. It's one of the things that it's definitely known for, in my opinion. The Zergling, in the meantime, is trying to scout. It is going to recognize that the Zerglings were coming out of this base. There's one more Zergling running around here, and it's just going to be straight Zergling production from Krona. And so there's definitely a timer on this build. It's going to need to try to do damage before that Spire comes up. Ooh, but unfortunate placement of the Spire here. The Spire, I think, is going to block this gas a little bit. Is it? I feel like I've made this mistake before, but maybe it was just that one drone. I don't see that affecting any consequent trips. Okay, so that works. That's fine. Yeah, so before the Spire comes in, Krona has a small window in which it's going to be producing more Zerglings than Monster, because Monster also needs to bank up minerals in order to start producing those Mutalisks. It also has more drones on gas, thereby requiring thereby giving less minerals available in order for the production of Zerglings. But this defensive arc is going to prove incredibly effective, I think, against Krona. Even with superior numbers, it basically guarantees that there's always going to be 2 Zerglings attacking 1 Zergling of Krona, and Krona will never get the favorable surface area for the engagement. And as you can see, Krona's not really sure how to approach this. I think maybe has seen the amount of Zerglings here and knows that it can't engage. In that case, it took a one-on-one. That was a good engagement. It knows that it looks like Krona knows that it needs to break in. Zerglings are filling in the gaps in the wall, very nicely done, and you can see there's actually a numerical advantage here for Monster, but Monster is going to maintain that defensive position and try to hold out until the Mutalisks come out. The Spire is now almost complete. There it is, and Zergling counts are again pretty equal. The Zerglings are going to fall back. Okay, Krona manages to bust through. The drones are going to come forward and try to engage. There's a lot of Zerglings here, actually. Nice bust here from Krona. Perhaps undermaking Zerglings from Monster. He definitely needed more, and wow, he's going to be down to no drones. And this is going to be the collision of all lanes, as I mentioned before. The Zerglings, I think, are going to be in too great of a number in order for Monster to be able to challenge them. Even with 3 Mutalisks, I don't think it's going to be able to kill the Zerglings fast enough to defend his base, and it certainly is not going to be able to curtail the production going on at home from Krona. Krona throwing down an Evolution Chamber now, looking to put up a Spore Colony, to defend against these Mutalisks, because it's nowhere near any anti-air units like Hydralisk or Mutalisk of its own. But, it doesn't really matter. 1 Mutalisk left behind to defend is certainly not going to be enough to take down these Zerglings. The 2 Mutalisks flying forward are keeping more Zerglings from reinforcing that forward position, but this whole entire time, keep in mind that Krona has been mining, and Krona is now throwing down that Spore Colony. Mutalisks don't seem intent on engaging. It looks like they're going to fly home to try to defend this Spore Colony, but it's too little too late. The division of labor between attacking and defense was definitely wrong there, and Monster goes down. Despite what we said earlier about how Monster is one of the top performing AIs, this just goes to show that anything is possible, and the right combination of factors, one small mistake here, despite all of the impressive displays that we saw from Monster throughout this game and the previous, Krona comes out on top with a what might be considered, like it's a suboptimal build. It's something that you don't often see, but sometimes just, muscling through with pure Zerglings works. And I feel like Monster should have adapted to that, should have made some more Zerglings to hold that forward position. You can delay your Mutalisks with the knowledge that your opponent is not going to be anywhere near Mutalisk production at the same time as you. You can make 2 rounds of Zerglings and 1 Mutalisk at first, and the first Mutalisk can help defend, and then you slowly build up your Mutalisk number advantage, and then you can start harassing the economy of the opponent. But either way, Corona takes that second game very well done, and now we're going to go into our last game of the day. We are going to be watching Corona again, phasing off against Crazio. Crazio, another very high performing AI in the scene. Crazio spawning in the top right as the green Terran, and Corona at the bottom right as the white Zerg. Again, scouting in the direction of the nearest natural, as is expected. On La Mancha, that does mean that there is going to be a clockwise path for all bases here. And Crazio, let's see what the build choice is here. From what I know of Crazio, they tend to play quite safe. They tend to go for something like 1-1-1, which is 1 barracks, 1 factory, and usually 1 starport, I believe. Getting armory and academy for scan, and eBay for turrets, and it's like a little bit of everything build, and that's usually not that great in RTS because of the fact that you're not cutting corners and getting more efficient builds. However, you are pretty much immune to being outright killed by something cheesy because you're going to be made more aware of it because of the fact that you're opting for something defensive. So it's going to be interesting to see what Corona opts for here. In the previous game, we did see the 2-hatch Zergling production beat out the more technical build of the 1-hatch Mutalisk from Monster. So I'm going to be curious to see what Corona opts for in the ZVT matchup, if it's going to be again a Zergling heavy approach to the game, or if we're going to be seeing something perhaps a bit more standard in this game. Crazio already walling off. It should be noted that Zerglings can pass through this gap here. Cannot pass between the 2 depots here, but there is indeed that gap. So walling generally not used in ZVT quite as often, but when it is used, it's usually as a kind of a stepping stone into something like 1 factory starport or 2 port. So it's going to be interesting to see what Crazio opts for here. I do anticipate that it will be a factory opening, although I don't see a gas being made quite yet. Generally, what you can see from Terran players is that they can go for that gas before the second depot. And nope, it's actually going to be the minerals are going to go for a bunker. This is again in line with my expectations of a defensive Crazio style play. Meanwhile, Corona seems to be going for a very similar approach to the previous game. Did make more drones than in the previous game. In the previous game also, I believe they went for the spawning pool first. Let me bring up that production tab for you guys. In this game, definitely went for the hatchery first, as you can see. Hatcheries do take longer to build than spawning pools, so the fact that it's ahead of the spawning pool kind of implies that it was made first. Gas now finally on the way for Crazio. So again, because of the fact that it went for the second depot in order to complete the wall and delayed its gas that way, because of the fact that it went for a bunker relatively blindly before confirming what the enemy is going for. If it had known that it was going for a hatchery first, for example, maybe going for a bunker first is not the most efficient approach, but it is going to be a viable answer to early pool builds. So that's why Crazio decides to go more defensive, but the counterweight to that is that look at how delayed this factory is. The factory could have been on the way much earlier, and vultures are incredibly good against Zerglings, particularly if they're microed well. The mechanics of it work like this: you patrol backwards. Well, by backwards I mean in the direction of the vulture. So the vulture is running away from the Zerglings, right? Let's say that the vulture is running this way, the Zergling is chasing this way. The vulture will press patrol backwards, and then you press move forwards, and the vulture almost shoots backwards to kill the Zergling. And it takes 2 shots to take out a Zergling with a unupgraded vulture, and so having early vultures would have been a major boon for Crazio in this scenario, because it does seem to be heavy Zergling production. Already 8 Zerglings out on the map, make that 10. Let me check that army count. Yep, it seems like it's going to be consistent Zergling production yet again from Corona, who did throw down a gas and a 3rd hatchery, so it is still different from the last game. The bunker proving its worth here now. We also see, it looks like it's probably Academy. Interesting choice here. It would have been nice to place a Marine possibly here to prevent Zerglings from running in, because a run-by is potentially possible. Although possibly a repairing SCV here as well would do the same trick. The bunker gets repaired. A lot of SCVs pulled though, so perhaps a little bit too many. Again, being a little bit overly cautious, maybe causing some opportunity cost for Crazio here, who is, by the way, supply blocked. I have to sneeze really badly. One second. Of course, as soon as you say you have to sneeze, you don't have to sneeze anymore. So that's the way that life is, I guess. But yeah, more and more Zerglings coming out. The first Vulture here is going to bolster the defenses of Crazio tremendously. SCVs being pulled yet again. Armory coming up now, and Engineering Bay. Yes, so exactly. This is the one of everything build from Crazio here, making sure to cover all bases, adding the Academy in order to get that Comsat station in case it's Lurker, and to confirm the tech that it is. In this case, it's actually no tech, it's just pure Zerglings. The lifting of the barracks are a little bit questionable. The SCVs are also confused. They're not repairing the bunker quite as efficiently as they could be, but it is staying up. The Zerglings seem more intent on trying to target something that they can't exactly reach. They're not targeting the bunker. They are taking down some SCVs. The Vultures are taking down the Zerglings much faster, though. And yeah, the Zerglings are just not able to make their way through. As the person who submitted this replay, Bitekeeper, says that the suggestion said that these Zerglings don't take no for an answer, and that is exactly what we're seeing here. Now, this is where we'll see that beautiful micro that we were discussing. Very nicely done here. The 3 Vultures should be able to start almost one-shotting, but ooh, nice surround there from Krona there, surrounding that Vulture and taking it down a notch. But yeah, the Vultures should come out ahead in this, despite the number disadvantage, but there are some minor micro flubs here from Crazio. In theory, Crazio shouldn't be hit by Zerglings ever, because these are Zerglings without speed, I believe. Yes, indeed. Oh no, actually no, they do have speed. Okay, interesting. Then the Zerglings should be able to actually surround this Vulture, but not before the Vulture takes down a significant number of its opponents here. Bunker being placed at the front, most likely going to be leading into a command center in the near future here in the natural for Crazio. Meanwhile, it's still going to be Zergling, 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 Zergling from Krona, it seems. Turrets even now being made for Crazio, which I'm confused by this. You know, if you have a Comsat scanner and if you scan and you see that there's no drones on gas, there's no spire, there's no hydrogen, there's no layer, you know, like, what do you need turrets for, really? I guess it's, you know, just in case, I guess, maybe there's a hidden expo, or maybe it only had one scan and it burned it on the main, thinks that there might be a natural. Now the eBay is going to confirm that there is no natural, but this is actually now becoming a significantly, a kind of scary Zergling force, and again, because of the minimalist and a little bit of everything approach from Crazio, the army count really isn't there from Crazio, so even though there is a bunker, there is a marine, oh my god, these Zerglings are going to surround this bunker, and if they manage to take this down, this would be such an upset here. It almost feels like Crazio did everything right, and there we go, the Marines go down. There was only 3 Marines in that bunker, there's probably 1 in this one, and now the Zerglings have free reign yet again to run in, and Corona, with the Zergling all-in plan, there's actually no Marine here, interesting, maybe I must have missed one earlier. Yeah, see, this is why you can't be building superfluous buildings in this matchup when pure Zergling muscle can win out. I really did think that Crazio was going to take that W, but I think maybe the miss micro of the Vultures a couple of times, the excessive spreading of tech across different areas, you know, getting Academy, Factory, Armory, 2 bunkers, turrets, and all that just led to there being not enough of one thing. Zergling rush all day. That's all I can say. Yeah, the Zerglings are going to prove to be superior here. The last Vulture goes down. Crazio has 0 supply and no money to remake anything. It is officially GG, and Crazio taps out. So yeah, let that be a lesson to you. You know, don't be too fancy. Don't make one of everything, because if you're not investing all your resources into a streamlined win condition, you're more likely to fall behind against someone who is. So, very nicely done by Krona. Better luck next time, Crazio. That is all I have for you guys today. It's going to be a shorter broadcast than usual. I was a bit under the weather throughout this week, so and I feel my nose starting to close up again. Thankfully, not coronavirus. For me, I did get tested. I am negative, so that's good. But I also, you know, it's Christmas. I'm not trying to cast for a whole hour. So I hopefully you guys enjoyed this quick little half-hour broadcast, and I hope to see you guys next week, which I think actually is again going to fall on an unfortunate day for some people at least. It's going to be Sunday the 2nd. We're going to have our next broadcast. Um, and yeah, hope to guys see you guys there. Thank you guys so much. I wish you all a happy holiday weekend. I wish you all a happy upcoming new year. I wish all the best for all of you in 2022. And I'm excited to see what the StarCraft AI scene has in store for us in the next year. Take care, everyone. Bye.